My name is Betty Thrasher, and I'm 26. I grew up breathing the metallic air of Sawyers and Sons, where vacation meant you only worked until noon on Saturdays, and pride was measured in the number of calluses you didn't complain about. Grandpa Will built the place out of spit, stubbornness, and a drill press that shook like a washing machine. The sign still says Sawyers and Sons, like a bad joke that got grandfathered in. I learned to weld before I learned to parallel park. By 17, I could rebuild the busted forklift blindfolded, but no one ever asked me to sit in on strategy, only to lift, fix, and carry. At our house, compliments were rationed, praise had a favorite child. My older sister Riley, the one with the glossy LinkedIn smile and vision, didn't like dust. She got nosebleeds if a box looked heavy. On Instagram, she captioned a photo in a white blazer holding a golf club. Work hard, play harder. Dad shared it like she'd invented steel. Mom said Riley had big picture energy. I had the hands for it. Family code for, we'll overwork you and underpay you forever. The coronation didn't even get a drum roll. It happened on a random Tuesday. Fluorescent lights buzzing, grease blooming on my sleeves. Dad called us into the office. Riley had been back from business school for 2 months. If business school is a 2-year vacation where you learn to photograph Aperol spritz and graduate without meeting a profit margin. The office smelled like paper dust and cinnamon tea. Mom sat beside Dad, steaming mug in hand, like a judge pretending to be neutral. Dad laced his fingers. Time to make things official. Riley will be assuming the role of operations lead. My brain hiccuped. Operations lead? You mean office management? Dad shook his head. The company. Silence. It hummed as loud as the lights. Mom sipped. Don't take it personally, honey. You're amazing with tools, truly gifted. But Riley's got that big picture energy. We need that right now. Big picture energy, I repeated, the words clicking like a bad ratchet. Dad leaned forward. Look, Betty, chill. You're just labor. You'll keep doing what you're good at. Just labor. Oil on my hands, fists curling under the table. Years of nights and Sundays, lungs full of metal grit, back crisscrossed with aches that didn't fit into HR. I had always told myself that if I worked hard enough, they'd see me. Turns out they did, as a wrench. I didn't make a scene. I went back to the floor, pulled down my mask, and stitched 2 sheets with a bead so clean you could eat off it. The arc hissed, my eyes stung, but it wasn't the heat. That week I tried to believe in teamwork. I cornered Riley by the break room fridge, where the Gatorades live and dreams go to flatten. If you're taking point, I told her, we need to make calls together. The crew won't respect paper if you don't know the floor. She patted my arm like I was a dog that sits nicely. I'll CC you, Bet. Don't stress. 3 weeks later, she forgot to order tungsten rods. She cut the supply budget because the numbers looked high. They were high because we were busy. When Bruno asked for a day off for his kids' school play, she denied it because it didn't align with Q3 velocity. He quit. Then Nadia. Then Cam. I was plugging holes in a sinking ship while Riley rebranded the company font. When I raised turnover with Mom, she pressed my shoulder. Sweetheart, you always get in your feelings. We just need harmony right now. Harmony, sure. With an office that couldn't tell a MIG from a TIG if it bit them through designer loafers. The night it snapped, I'd worked 14 hours and got a voicemail from Riley scolding me about the kerning on a logo mock-up. Kerning. I sat in the break room under a flickering light that sounded like bees in a jar, pulled a napkin from the dispenser, and wrote 2 words with a dull Sharpie. I'm done. The ink bled into the paper fibers, a bruise turning purple. The next morning, I didn't clock in. I woke to sun on my face. No steel-toe boots, no vending machine coffee. I made real eggs. My phone buzzed on day 4. Yo, you good? Shipment Friday. That was Riley pretending to be casual. I stared at my screen and typed, Ask labor. Then I put the phone face down and listened to the quiet like it was a new language. The stillness lasted exactly until the calls started. First a former client, then a supplier rep. Dennis, the gruff uncle of the metals world, cigars and coffee and weathered kindness, asked, Betty, what the hell's going on over there? They sent a rookie to negotiate pricing. Kid doesn't know anodized aluminum from tinfoil. He grunted. If you ever go independent, call me first. I said noted and felt my pulse answer, now. I didn't return to the building I grew up in. I drove to Milo's place instead. He's the friend who never flinched when I texted photos of poorly stacked pallets at 2 a.m., the one who taught me spreadsheets that make sense to my brain. We cleared his workshop, poured a slab, and I set up a welding table that shone like a promise. My boyfriend Marcus showed up with burritos and the kind of smile that doesn't pity you for starting over. "Name it," he said, tapping the table. "Names make things real." "I've had one in my notes app for 3 years," I replied, a little embarrassed. "Redline Fabrication." He grinned. "Say it out loud." "Redline Fabrication," I said, and something inside me clicked into place like a fresh bearing. Back at Sawyer's and Sons, the cracks became craters. Milo's cousin sent blow-by-blow updates like it was a reality show with a doomed season arc. Riley tried to run payroll in Excel and crashed it. 2 clients pulled orders. Someone emailed the wrong specs. HR was just a manila folder with a paperclip and a prayer. Then the cherry dropped. Midwest Transit, my 6-year relationship, the one I'd kept alive through supply chain hell and snowstorms with bear claw deliveries for Larry in receiving, called me directly. Not the company. Me. The words came like a switch being thrown. "If you go independent, we'll work with you." It wasn't pettiness that made me breathe out a laugh. It was relief. This wasn't me breaking something. This was me choosing. That afternoon, I opened a business account, ordered cards, and filed the LLC, hands steady, shoulders light. That night, Dad called. No hello, just, "We're in a tight spot." I let the silence sit. "Midwest Transit said they'd reconsider if you handled the next batch personally," he said. The old urgency in his voice, the one that used to make me sprint for the dock. I thought of that napkin in my pocket, the words already drying into memory. "I'll think about it," I said. "If I step in, it'll be under my terms." He started to say something about being the bigger person. I ended the call gently. At dawn, I drafted my proposal. Redline Fabrication will manage materials, sourcing, and scheduling end-to-end and as an independent contractor. Rates attached, non-negotiable. I sent it to Dad alone. 3 hours later, Cheryl, the accountant who has kept our chaos from burning the entire block for 20 years, replied, "Understood. Processing now." I didn't grin. Not outwardly. Inside, though, something stood up straight for the first time in years. When I pulled up to Midwest Transit, Larry greeted me at the door. "Bear claws in the break room, just for you," he said. "You remembered," I smiled. He shrugged. "You kept our fleet on schedule during the salt shortage. If I could name a bus after you, I would." We walked the floor, checked specs, agreed on a timeline that didn't insult physics. It felt like home, only it was my home, this time. Back in Milo's garage, Marcus adjusted the shop fan while I updated a whiteboard we'd salvaged from a school auction. New logo taped to the corner. Contracts pinned underneath, with sleek binder clips like little flags. My phone lit up again. Group email from the old shop. "Urgent. Midwest Transit order revival. Betty is lead." Everyone CC'd, including Riley. Her reply all hit a minute later. "Wait, is this a joke? We're crawling back to just labor now?" The room went still, as if emails could echo. I didn't reply. I let the space expand. Sometimes silence is the only sound people hear. That night, I slid the napkin under a magnet by my monitor. Just labor. Not a bruise anymore, a blueprint. The first week after I walked away from Sawyer's and Sons felt like rehab from a lifetime of exhaustion. My body didn't know what to do with rest. I woke up at 9, made breakfast that wasn't wrapped in foil, and watched sunlight crawl across the floor without anyone shouting my name from the warehouse. Marcus came over that second morning, balancing 2 coffees. "So, what's the plan, boss?" "Don't call me that," I said automatically. He smirked. "What should I call you then? Free woman? Ex-labor?" I laughed, though the sound felt strange, rusty. The truth was, I didn't know what the plan was. I just knew I couldn't go back. By the 4th day, the world started calling first. Former clients, supplier reps, even one of the subcontractors who'd left months ago. "Betty," Dennis said over the phone, voice low like he was confessing something. "Your sister's running that place like a lemonade stand. Missed shipments, bad invoices, 3 welders gone in a week. Tell me you're out for good." "I'm out," I said quietly. He grunted approvingly. "Then maybe you should be in business for yourself." That line stuck with me all day. That evening, Milo and I sat cross-legged on the concrete floor of his garage, surrounded by power tools and the smell of oil and pizza. "You're serious?" he asked. "As a heart attack." He pushed a stray wrench with his foot. "Then we'll need a workbench, good ventilation, and a sign." "Sign?" He grinned. "Even rebellions need branding." I texted Marcus a photo of our half-cleaned workspace. He replied instantly. "Proud of you. Also, please wear gloves before you get tetanus." 2 days later, the garage was unrecognizable. Painted walls, polished floor, and a slab of new concrete that still glistened under the evening light. I ordered my first batch of supplies under Redline Fabrication LLC. The email confirmation felt better than any promotion I'd never gotten. Meanwhile, Sawyers & Sons was melting down faster than solder. Milo's cousin sent me real-time updates from the inside. Payroll crash, week 1. Supplier overcharge, week 2. Client complaints piling up like unfiled invoices. Then Dennis called again, tone sharper this time. "What the hell is going on over there?" he barked. "They sent a rookie to negotiate bulk aluminum. Kid didn't even know what a gauge tolerance was." I exhaled slowly. "His name's Riley." Dennis snorted. "Figures. Listen, if you're taking contracts, I've got work waiting. Midwest Transit's looking to jump ship." The name hit me like a jolt. Midwest Transit, my oldest client, the one that kept our shop alive during the pandemic when others folded. I'd spent 6 years building that relationship. Late-night calls, emergency deliveries, donuts for Larry every Friday. I asked quietly, "They'd really switch?" Dennis replied, "They said they'd work with whoever actually gets the job done. That used to be you." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the Redline logo on my screen, a rough sketch of an iron beam forming the letter R, and realized something. The fear I'd carried all these years wasn't about losing my job. It was about losing permission. The next morning, Dad called. No hello. "Midwest Transit says they'll reconsider the contract if you handle it," he said briskly. I let him talk. "We need solutions, not grudges," he continued. "You've made your point. Time to come back." "I'm not coming back," I said evenly, "but I'll take it under my terms." He sighed the way he always did before lecturing me about family loyalty. "Don't be childish, Betty. We built this together." I laughed softly. "No, Dad, I built it. You branded it." He hung up without saying goodbye. By noon, I'd written the proposal. Redline Fabrication will manage the Midwest Transit order independently. Full control over materials, sourcing, and scheduling. Payment upfront. Rates non-negotiable. I sent it directly to the Sawyers' email. The reply came 3 hours later, not from Dad or Riley, but from Cheryl, the accountant. "Understood. Processing now." Just like that, I was back in, but above them. When I walked into Midwest Transit the next week, Larry was waiting by the door holding a box of bear claws. "For old time's sake," he said with a grin. I smiled back. "You remembered." He nodded toward the warehouse floor. We all did. We walked through the rows of bus frames, metal shining under fluorescent lights. For the first time in years, I felt steady. Not anxious, not grateful, just steady. That afternoon, I came home to Milo's garage, hung up my jacket, and saw Marcus scribbling numbers on the whiteboard. "Your first invoice," he said proudly. "Feels good, doesn't it?" "Better than oxygen," I murmured. Then my phone buzzed. A group email from the Sawyers & Sons account. Subject line, "Urgent. Midwest Transit Order Revival. Betty is lead." Everyone was CC'd, including Riley. Her reply all came 1 minute later. "Wait, is this a joke? We're crawling back to just labor now?" No one answered her. The silence sat heavy in the inbox like a judgment. I didn't reply either. I just taped the napkin that said, "I'm done" above my desk, right next to a fresh sheet of paper titled Redline Fabrication, Invoice Number 01. For the first time in my life, I wasn't asking to be seen. I was being paid to be seen. The ink on my first Redline invoice had barely dried when Dad called again. No preamble, no, "How are you?" Just, "Betty, we've got a problem." I almost laughed. "You don't say." He launched into it. Something about suppliers, backlogs, Midwest Transit expecting on-time delivery. Every sentence was another invisible "we." I let him talk until he said the part that mattered. "They want you." That hit different. Not us, not Sawyers & Sons, me. "Then you'd better start treating me like a contractor," I said. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you don't get my labor for free anymore." There was a long silence before he said low and sharp, Don't make this about money. It's not, I replied. It's about value. You taught me what mine was the day you said I was just labor. He didn't hang up, but he didn't argue either. That was new. By morning, the deal was official. Cheryl, the quiet accountant who'd been everyone's unpaid therapist, confirmed the payment schedule with me directly. She even added, "For what it's worth, Betty, this should have happened a long time ago." That afternoon, I showed up at the shop, not to clock in, but to collect materials under my red line contract. The smell hit me first. Burnt metal and bitter coffee. The same as always, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Riley appeared by the office doorway, arms crossed, face powdered like she had a photo shoot coming up. "Well, well," she said, smirking. "The prodigal wrench returns." "Contractor," I corrected. "Independent contractor." Her smile faltered. "Oh, right. Freelance welder. That's adorable." I met her gaze evenly. "Funny, your clients don't seem to think so." She flushed but recovered quickly. "You think this one order makes you legitimate? You've got a table in a garage." "Maybe," I said, "but at least my lights stay on." For the first time, she had no comeback, just a hard blink and a tighter jaw. I gathered the parts I needed and walked out. No goodbyes, no drama, just the echo of my boots on the concrete, like punctuation. 2 days later, I was back at Midwest Transit, running quality checks with Larry. He held a clipboard and whistled. "Not a single error this round. You'd think you'd been doing this for decades." "I have," I said quietly. "Just without credit." He chuckled and clapped my shoulder. "Credit's overrated. Checks clear faster." For the first time in a long time, I smiled without bitterness. When the order shipped, the Midwest Transit team sent an email to both me and Sawyers & Sons. Delivery ahead of schedule. Excellent work from Redline Fabrication. The next day, the fallout began. Milo texted, "Your family's in chaos." Attached was a photo from his cousin inside the shop. Whiteboard scribbles in panic read, "Fix payroll ASAP. Find new clients. Who is Larry and why won't he call me back?" I stared at the image for a long time, my coffee cooling beside me. Later that afternoon, another email popped up. Group thread again. Dad's name at the top. "To all staff, huge thanks to Redline Fabrication for saving the Midwest Transit order." And then, seconds later, Riley replied all again. "So now we're thanking outsiders for fixing our mess? Cool. Should I send flowers too?" Not one person defended her. That silence, the one that used to smother me, was finally working in my favor. That night I called Marcus on the drive home. "Guess what?" I said, trying to sound casual. He laughed. "Your tone says either you landed a new client or committed arson." "Better," I said. "Redline's officially profitable." He whistled. "How profitable?" "Profitable enough that my dad's company owes me an apology and a check." He chuckled. "Well, one's guaranteed." The next morning, Dad called again. This time, almost gentle. "Your invoice," he started awkwardly, "came through. You didn't go easy on us." "No," I said flatly. "You didn't go easy on me either." He cleared his throat. "You've built something good here." That stopped me. Compliments from him were like solar eclipses, rare and usually followed by disaster. "Thanks," I said finally. Then he asked the question I didn't see coming. "Any chance you'd want to come back? Maybe restructure?" I almost smiled. "You mean fix everything Riley broke while you watched?" He hesitated. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." There was a pause so long I thought the call had dropped. Then softly, "Even after all this, you're still willing to work with us?" "No," I said. "I'm willing to bill you." I heard him exhale, half defeat, half something like relief, and then the line clicked dead. That evening, I updated Redline's job board. New logo pinned to the top. 2 new orders already lined up underneath. And beneath the monitor, taped with the same magnet as before, "Just labor." Only now it looked less like an insult and more like a prophecy. Because labor builds, labor creates, and this time it was building for me. By midsummer, Redline Fabrication was more than a garage dream. It was a living, buzzing machine. We'd expanded into a rented commercial lot on the edge of Dayton, a place that used to be an auto detailing shop. Now it smelled like metal and ambition. Milo and Marcus helped me move in. Marcus insisted on painting one wall crimson red. "Brand color," he said with a grin. I teased him. "You just want it to match your truck." He shrugged. "Guilty." Our team had grown too. Milo's cousin, Cam, a digital CAD whiz who could 3D model an entire assembly line while drinking Red Bull like water. With his help, Redline started offering digital prototypes, something Sawyers and Sons had never even heard of. It was exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. Orders started pouring in, clients referred clients, and suddenly I had to schedule sleep like a meeting. Every night I fell asleep at my workbench to the hum of equipment and the faint buzz of satisfaction. Then came the message that made my stomach drop. Larry from Midwest Transit. Hey, funny thing. Your old company just pulled out of the Industrial Expo. They told us to check out Redline's booth instead. You guys are doing something newer. I reread that twice. My family's company, referring people to me. It sounded like surrender, but it felt like setup. Still, we took the chance. I registered Redline for the Cincinnati Industrial Suppliers Expo, a statewide showcase for manufacturing vendors. It was supposed to be our quiet debut. Except 2 weeks later, the quiet ended. I got an email from a county procurement officer. Received 2 nearly identical proposals, one from Redline Fabrication, another from something called Black Line Division, Sawyers and Sons. Please confirm affiliation. My chest went cold. Black Line Division. I opened the attached file and my jaw literally dropped. Same formatting, same rate sheet, same late fee clause. They'd copied our entire proposal, only replaced the logo and color scheme. They didn't even fix the typos. Worse, they'd forgotten to delete the line at the bottom that still read, Redline Client Portal Link, Beta. Riley hadn't just borrowed my business model. She'd stolen it pixel for pixel. Milo found me sitting in silence staring at the screen. He leaned over. What the hell is that? Apparently, I said, it's my company, but in black. He blinked. You're kidding. I turned the monitor so he could see. Same layout, same invoice structure. They even kept the watermark. Milo let out a low whistle. That's not imitation. That's identity theft. Correction, I said. It's desperation. We spent the next few hours contacting our clients, not to start a fight, but to clarify who we were. I refused to sink to their level. Still, every ping of my inbox felt like a bruise. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake replaying every memory of my family brushing me off, every "you're just labor," every ignored idea. And now, suddenly, they were copying me. Not because they believed in me, but because they'd run out of themselves. The next morning, I drove to the Dayton shop early. The air was heavy with that pre-storm stillness. I was finishing an email to a supplier when the door opened. And there she was. Riley. Heels on concrete, button up too crisp for a welding shop, sunglasses perched like armor. Wow, she said, glancing around. So this is the big empire, a garage with Wi-Fi. I wiped my hands on a rag. If you came to insult me, try harder. I've heard worse. She smirked. I just wanted to see what all the fuss was about. Everyone's talking about Redline. Then you've seen enough, I said flatly. Riley stepped closer. You don't get it, Betty. The company's drowning. Payroll's chaos. Dad's losing it. We're getting audited next month. Mom's talking about selling equipment just to keep the lights on. Not my problem, I said. Her eyes flickered. Anger, then calculation. I can make you an offer. I almost laughed. You want to hire me now? She shook her head. No, I want to merge. Black Line and Red Line, imagine it. Family reunited, shared resources, bigger footprint, full circle. We could be unstoppable. I stared at her like she'd started speaking another language. You plagiarized my proposal, I said quietly, then tried to sell it as your innovation. You don't want a merger. You want a parachute. Her face hardened. You're not going to win forever, Betty. Everyone burns out. When you do, you'll wish you had family. No, I said calmly. When I do, I'll still have integrity. The silence after that felt endless. Then, without another word, she turned and left. Her car screeched out of the lot like the sound of pride shattering. 2 days later, a courier arrived with a legal envelope, a cease and desist. The letter accused Redline of intellectual property infringement against Black Line Division. I actually laughed out loud. They're suing us, Milo said, incredulous. For stealing our own work, I replied. Marcus looked up from across the shop, half amused, half protective. You gonna fight it? I smiled slowly. No, I'm going to expose it. Because sometimes you don't have to swing the hammer. You just have to turn on the lights. When I decided to expose my family's copycat stunt, I didn't plan revenge. I planned proof. I called a man named Rich, an old-school supplier rep who'd been in the metals business since before I was born. The kind of guy who kept every contract printed, labeled, and boxed by decade. He also happened to be best friends with the procurement officer for Crawford County, the very office that received both my red line proposal and Riley's plagiarized black line version. When I told him what happened, Rich wheezed into the phone, half laughing, half stunned. "So let me get this straight," he said. "They copied your proposal, renamed it, and then accused you of stealing it?" "That's exactly what they did," he chuckled darkly. "Give me 24 hours, kid. I'll handle this the old-fashioned way, with paperwork." He wasn't kidding. The next afternoon, I got an email from the county procurement officer herself. "Hi, Ms. Thrasher. We're preparing a vendor ethics presentation for the upcoming statewide supplier summit. We'd like permission to use your original red line proposal and the copied black line document as an educational comparison on professional integrity. May we display them publicly?" I leaned back in my chair, stunned. Then I grinned. Full permission granted. A week later, I was sitting in a conference hall in Cincinnati under dim lights and bad carpeting, pretending to sip burnt hotel coffee while the projector flickered to life. The panel title glowed across the screen: Integrity in Contracting, When Innovation Gets Imitated. The moderator introduced the case study, red line fabrication versus black line division. They projected side-by-side images. My red line proposal on the left, their counterfeit on the right. Same structure, same margins, same rate sheet, even the watermark I'd embedded in the corner, still faintly visible beneath their logo. Then the consultant zoomed in on the metadata footer, where my original file name still existed, Redline Client Portal v2.doc. Gasps rippled through the audience. Someone muttered, "Oh, that's bold." Another whispered, "And stupid." The consultant nodded. This is what happens when a company forgets that reputation is harder to fabricate than steel. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. I just sat still, hands clasped, watching as my old life unraveled publicly without me having to say a word. And then I saw her. Mom! She was sitting near the middle row, small and tense, clutching her purse like it was an oxygen tank. She hadn't seen me yet. When the panel ended, people clapped. Not politely, earnestly. They admired Redline for handling the situation with grace and professionalism. When the lights came up, Mom's eyes found mine. Her face was pale, older somehow. She approached slowly through the crowd. "Betty," she said softly, "I didn't know you were here." "I didn't plan to be," I said, "but I figured I should watch the show." She winced. "You humiliated your sister." I raised an eyebrow. Did I? Or did she humiliate herself? "You could have stopped that panel," she said quietly. "You could have declined permission." "No," I said. For once, I didn't cover for her. Mom's eyes glistened. "Your father's not doing well. His blood pressure's through the roof. He barely sleeps." That almost got me. Almost. But then I remembered the long years of silence, the endless "be the bigger person" speeches, the way they'd all looked at me like background noise in their family photo. I took a breath. "I hope he gets better," I said simply. She blinked, stunned by my calm. "That's it?" "That's more than I got when I left," I said. Her mouth trembled. "I made lasagna last week," she murmured, as if that erased everything. I almost smiled. "And I made a company," I replied gently. "I think we're even." She looked down, nodded once, and walked away. I stood there, surrounded by strangers shaking my hand, congratulating me on Redline's integrity. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like an imposter. I felt solid. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Not an email, not a text. A real handwritten letter, like it came from another lifetime. The envelope had my father's stiff, careful handwriting. Inside was a single page. "You were right. I should have listened. We built something, but you kept it alive. Riley isn't ready. I don't expect forgiveness. But if there's ever a way forward, I'd like to earn it." No signature, no address, just quiet surrender. I folded it carefully and tucked it into my desk drawer, right next to my first Redline business card and that grease-stained napkin that still said "I'm done." And for the first time, I didn't feel angry anymore. Because this time I wasn't just labor, I was legacy. The morning of Redline's open house, I woke up before sunrise. The kind of nervous excitement that feels like static under your skin. Milo was already at the shop, stringing lights across the rafters. Marcus brought trays of food from a local bakery. the smell of cinnamon and espresso filling the air. For once, the space didn't feel like a workplace. It felt like a celebration. Clients came in one by one. Larry from Midwest Transit, Dennis from the Supplier chain, even Cam's former instructor from trade school. They toured the workshop, touched the machines, and asked questions that mattered. No fake smiles, no rehearsed speeches, just people who respected the work. Halfway through the day, Milo clinked his coffee mug like it was champagne. To Redline, like he said, grinning. Born from scraps, built from stubbornness. Everyone laughed, and I felt a sting of tears I didn't expect. On the wall behind me hung our logo, clean and sharp against the red paint Marcus insisted on. Beneath it, taped neatly under the monitor, was that old napkin, the one I'd written "I'm done" on. The Sharpie letters had faded into gray veins, but it still carried the weight of everything that came after. By evening, the guests had thinned out, and I finally had a moment to breathe. The hum of the ventilation fans filled the quiet. I sat at my desk and noticed something through the window, a car parked across the street. At first, I didn't think much of it. Then I saw who was inside. Riley. She wasn't wearing her usual armor of confidence. No sunglasses, no heels, no smirk. Just sitting there, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the building like she didn't recognize it. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then I saw her raise a hand slightly. Not a wave exactly, but something softer, an acknowledgement, maybe even a silent apology. I didn't go out there. Not because I was angry, but because I was finally at peace. Some people say revenge feels good. It doesn't. Closure does. Later that night, after everyone left, I stood in the center of the shop alone. The machine sat silent, metal gleaming in the warm light. On the whiteboard was our next quarter's schedule. Full. Waiting lists. Expansion projects. The same hands they once called just labor had built all this. I thought of Grandpa Will, the man who built a company from rust and willpower. Of Dad, who couldn't see beyond his own hierarchy. Of Mom, who mistook appeasement for love. Of Riley, who inherited a crown she never learned to carry. And of me, the daughter who learned that sometimes you have to stop trying to fix a broken family and build your own foundation instead. Marcus came up behind me, sliding his arms around my shoulders. "You did it," he said softly. I leaned back against him. "We did it," he smiled. "What's next?" I looked at the rows of finished parts, the glint of machinery waiting for morning. "We keep building," I said. Not to prove them wrong, just to prove ourselves right. Outside, the streetlight flickered, catching the chrome lettering on the door. Redline Fabrication, built, not inherited. I turned off the lights, feeling something deep and steady in my chest. Because the thing about being called just labor is that labor doesn't crumble when the walls fall. Labor rebuilds. And tonight, as the shop door clicked shut, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't done building, not even close.